Poppy Playtime Inverse community is still surprisingly alive and pretty popular right now. And on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, I see this matchup all the time. You guys yourselves also voted for this matchup. Catnap versus Huggy Wuggy is considered one of, if not the closest matchups, according to some Redditors in Poppy Playtime Inverse. So, who really wins this matchup between two of the prototype's top enforcers if we put them in a room and they suddenly turn against each other? Who will truly walk out of that room alive? Well, in today's video, we're going to find out exactly that. We know that both Huggy and Catnap are the prototype's top enforcers, as mentioned, with both of them having different roles. Huggy is meant to be Playtime's security system, while Catnap is supposed to be the caretaker or guard of Playcare. So they should be around the same tier, and would put them above everyone else who works for the prototype. Both of their body parts are also able to survive 24 explosive barrels with little to no damage, so we don't really need to go over scaling because by lore and narrative, they should be about the same tier. Catnap's success is also compared to Huggy Wuggy's own success as an experiment, as they say Catnap's success could rival Huggy Wuggy's own. This could imply that they are relative, but it's likely referring to how obedient they are depending on how you see it. We also know that Huggy should be faster than Catnap because he's stated multiple times to be faster than the human eyes can track, whilst we don't really have anything much for Catnap aside from him being able to tackle the player before he can react. So he should be at least superhuman to subsonic speeds because of this one scene. Besides that, he doesn't really do much in the chase scenes. Huggy is visually outright shown to be faster than him in Chapter 1 and 5. Besides that, he doesn't really do much in the chase scenes, though you can compare him to Huggy's speed with the statement I mentioned before, depending on how you see it. But like I said again, it's likely just referring to how obedient the experiments are. Huggy's visually outright shown to be faster than him in Chapter 1 and 5, compared to Catnap in Chapter 3, so speed should already go to Huggy. For strength and all, you can argue for either sides, considering both are able to ragdoll multiple humans at the same time, as seen in the Hour of Joy incident. Catnap is said to be the prototype's final obstacle, but that doesn't really mean that he's outright stronger than everyone else, considering Poppy just says this because she thinks Huggy is dead, and so is Mommy. Catnap is literally just the final top servant of the prototype, alive up to that point of time. It doesn't outright mean he's stronger than characters from past chapters. If you try to argue that most of the time in video games, the last boss is the strongest, then you might as well argue Yarnaby being above Catnap, which is objectively wrong. However, there is a statement that suggests Catnap having better mobility and denser bones, so you could argue better strength, but when you look at it carefully, they just compare Catnap's mobility to Boxy Boo, who's just flexible and stretchy. So Catnap just takes agility, flexibility, and reflexes pretty easily, but not in the terms of having better strength, having better physical strengths. And above the bone thing, it's a bit weird to argue because Huggy doesn't really have bones and most characters don't. For example, Doughy, he's just made of dough, not really bones. Huggy should have a ribcage and a skull, and maybe hands and feet for our skeletal structure, but that's kind of it. Other than that, he's just pure muscle. So this statement is kind of vague to argue that because he has denser bones, it means he's automatically stronger than the other experiments. So do what you want with that. But you can argue that because he's more of a modern experiment, Catnap could be stronger. But if you want to take that, you might as well argue Mommy above both Catnap and Huggy, considering she was created after Catnap, according to the experiment number, and you and I both know how wrong that is. Nevertheless, this statement is probably just referring to the fact that Catnap is the only experiment who's built to output the red smoke and spread it. As mentioned before, we know Catnap is able to bust through walls, and so is Huggy. Catnap should also be stronger than Miss Delight, who's able to smash an entire generator with a hammer with this much energy. And Huggy should technically upscale from this too because he's a bigger body and is relative to Catnap by lore. But the thing is, Huggy just shows better stuff while being injured. This motherfucker literally has his organs sticking out of his body. He's also visually shown to be gasping and tired, while Catnap can't even handle a little fire without screaming in pain, despite it barely causing any physical damage. So based on that, Huggy should take stamina and endurance with ease. For durability and IQ, Catnap should be a lot smarter than Huggy, because for one, he can talk and shows kinda better emotional intelligence considering his relationship with the prototype. While Huggy is just an aggressive fighter, he's clearly not dumb because she's shown to have affection towards Kissy Missy and knows how to stalk the player effectively and goes into a rage after seeing the player because they almost killed him. So the intelligence gap isn't that far off. Something else to take note is that Huggy is potentially a better fighter, regardless of being less smarter, as he's literally built and possibly trained to be Playtime's security system. And it's kind of supported because we do see that he definitely knows how to use his hands, shown in Chapter 5. Durability is hard to decide because it's arguable for both sides. While yeah, Catnap is able to tank an overloading green hand charged with electricity, they still are relative, and as mentioned, they are able to withstand the same explosive barrels the prototype tanks. So you can argue that they're equal in durability. However, I'll probably have to give it to Huggy because even though they are relative, Huggy was able to withstand a deep fall that was so bad it had his organs sticking out of him. While we don't really have much context behind Catnap's electricity tanking feat, something else to note is that one of the mods in the official Poppy Playtime Discord server does say Catnap would probably win against Huggy, but it's not really much or reliable at all considering the mods don't have authority over the narrative. Even if they do have a role that say they're in the team, it doesn't mean they have direct authority over the story. Nevertheless, this could just be their interpretation or opinion. Both of them should have good stealth as they are able to stalk the player without a single sound shown in chapter 1 for Huggy, but Catnap should have it a but Catnap should have it better because he's able to stalk the player for a longer period of time, and even while running in this scene, he barely makes a sound. And throughout the entire chapter, he just stalks the player more quietly. So Catnap could potentially pull off an off guard on Huggy. For obvious reasons, Catnap should take abilities and hacks easily. The red smoke can cause direct hallucinations regardless if you're awake or not, and can put you to sleep. And shown in Huggy Wuggy's memories, the red smoke does technically work against Huggy, but what's weird is that Chapter 5 clearly shows that Huggy gains some kind of resistance to it, because when he breaks the glass, the red smoke just gets sucked through it, and it directly goes into Huggy's face and does absolutely nothing to him, even though he's heavily weakened. Even Kissy, who has the same exact product specifications as Huggy, just doesn't give a crap about the red smoke, was also weakened during the time. So they kinda just built up a resistance, if not an outright immunity to the red smoke. Now, when coming down to a death battle, who really wins? I'm going to have to give it to Huggy mainly because of his better stamina, endurance, combat, and physical strength, and his developed resistance to the red smoke, so Catnap's red smoke can't really do anything to Huggy. Catnap is bigger when standing upright, but Huggy's still the better fighter with better physical stats, so he should take the win with high to possibly extreme difficulty. If you have any disagreements or questions, leave it down in the comments, and I'll reply if you're not a total dumbass who just wants to waste time. But anyways, that's it for today's video, and see ya later.